Why must I open my legs for you, human? Alien girl has no idea what a gynecologist is. The sterile corridors of Outpost Omega hummed with the familiar drone of life support systems. Dr. Alex Ryder finished reviewing his patient roster for the day, his broad shoulders hunched slightly over the holographic display. The last appointment stood out. A new arrival from Xylos requiring a standard medical evaluation. Another day, another alien anatomy to navigate, he muttered, running a hand through his wavy chestnut hair. 6 years on this deep space medical station had exposed him to more biological variations than most doctors saw in a lifetime. Still, the Xylosians were relatively new to the Galactic Confederation, and their medical records were sparse at best. Alex straightened his dark green medical uniform and adjusted the stethoscope around his neck. The examination room was prepped, equipment sterilized, and forms ready for completion. Standard procedure, nothing he hadn't done hundreds of times before. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Holy shit," Alex whispered under his breath, immediately regretting his unprofessional reaction. Standing in the doorway was perhaps the most striking Xyloian he'd ever encountered. Her skin was a vibrant emerald green that seemed to shimmer under the examination room's lights. Light blue eyes, not just blue, but the color of Earth's clearest tropical waters, regarded him with unmistakable intelligence and caution. Long white hair was gathered in an elaborate style that spoke of status and tradition. Her form-fitting black bodysuit with strategic cutouts along the sides accentuated an unmistakably humanoid figure, though the thick collar around her neck marked her as a member of Silas' analytical caste. "Dr. Ryder?" Her voice carried a melodic quality, the universal translator barely keeping up with the complex tonal shifts of her native language. Alex cleared his throat, professionalism reasserting itself. "Yes, welcome to Outpost Omega's medical facility. You must be Liara." "Analyst Liara Vakaran, third tier of the knowledge caste," she corrected, her posture stiffening slightly. "I was informed a medical evaluation is required before I can begin my duties." "That's correct. Standard procedure for all new arrivals, regardless of species." Alex gestured toward the examination chair. "Please have a seat and we'll get started." Liara approached cautiously, studying the medical equipment with obvious curiosity. "Your technology appears primitive compared to Xylosian medical facilities." Alex chuckled. "We humans may not have the most advanced tech in the galaxy, but we get the job done." He tapped his temple. "Sometimes old-fashioned observation beats fancy scanners." The hint of a smile touched her lips before quickly disappearing. She perched on the edge of the examination chair, back straight as a rod. "I'll need to conduct a full physical examination," Alex explained, activating his medical scanner. "We'll start with basic vitals and work our way through each system. The Confederation requires thorough documentation for all species working on joint facilities." Liara nodded stiffly as Alex began the examination. Her vitals were within normal parameters for her species, at least according to the limited data available. Her respiratory and cardiovascular systems appeared healthy, and her neurological responses were exceptional, even for a member of the analytical caste. "Everything looks good so far," Alex said, making notes on his datapad. "Now we need to move on to the reproductive health screening." Liara's body tensed. "Reproductive screening?" "Yes, it's standard for all personnel. Just a basic examination to ensure there are no health concerns." Alex adjusted the examination chair to recline slightly. "If you could position yourself here and place your feet in the stirrups, we can complete this quickly." The color drained from Liara's face, her vibrant green skin paling to a sickly mint. Her eyes widened with unmistakable horror. "Why?" She breathed, voice trembling with a mixture of shock and outrage. "Why must I open my legs for you, human male?" Alex froze, suddenly aware that something was very wrong. The raw intensity of her reaction caught him completely off guard. "It's a standard gynecological examination," he explained carefully, "to check reproductive health." "Reproductive?" Liara stood abruptly, backing away from the chair. "You wish to mate with me? Is this some barbaric human ritual?" Alex's professional demeanor cracked as he realized the magnitude of the misunderstanding. "No, God, no, this is a medical examination, not—" He stopped, taking a deep breath. I'm a doctor. This is a health screening. In my culture, exposure of reproductive organs is reserved solely for the mating cycle and only with designated genetic partners. Her voice rose, blue eyes flashing dangerously. This is unthinkable. Alex raised his hands in a placating gesture. I apologize for the misunderstanding. I had no idea this would violate your cultural norms. Liara's chest rose and fell rapidly, her breathing uneven. Your apology does not erase the insult. On Xylos, such a request would be grounds for immediate caste demotion or worse. Look, Alex said, lowering his voice and trying a different approach. I'm not familiar with all Losian customs. Perhaps we can find an alternative approach that respects your cultural boundaries while still meeting Confederation health requirements. Liara's posture remained rigid, but some of the panic faded from her eyes. What alternatives might exist? We have non-invasive scanning technology. It's not as thorough, but it would allow us to check for any major health concerns without you having to open your legs for me. He couldn't help the slight smirk that accompanied the last words. To his surprise, a faint purple blush colored Liara's cheeks. That would be acceptable. As Alex prepared the alternative scanning equipment, he found himself intrigued by this clash of cultures. In his 6 years on Outpost Omega, he'd encountered countless alien species with their own unique customs and taboos. But something about Liara's fierce protection of her cultural values struck him as admirable. I should have been briefed on Xylosian customs before your arrival, Alex admitted as he calibrated the scanner. The Confederation is usually better about providing cultural context. Xylos has only recently joined your Confederation, Liara replied, her voice steadier now. Many of our customs remain private. Alex nodded, focusing on the scanner readings. Well, everything appears normal according to the baseline data we have for Xylosian physiology. Your reproductive system seems healthy, though I should note our data on female Xylosians is limited. Liara visibly relaxed. Then we are finished? Almost. Just a few more general health questions and you'll be cleared for duty. Alex set aside the scanner and picked up his data pad again. Do you have any ongoing health concerns I should be aware of? As they completed the examination, the initial tension gradually dissipated. Liara's responses became less clipped, and Alex found himself genuinely interested in learning more about Xylosian physiology and culture. Thank you for your understanding, Doctor. Ryder, Liara said as she prepared to leave. I apologize for my reaction. No apology necessary, Alex replied with a warm smile. Cultural misunderstandings happen. I'm just glad we found a solution that worked for both of us. Liara paused at the door, her blue eyes studying him with newfound curiosity. Perhaps humans are more adaptable than Xylosian reports suggest. With that cryptic comment, she was gone, leaving Alex staring at the closed door, wondering what exactly Xylosian reports said about humans and why he was already looking forward to their next encounter. 3 days after their awkward first meeting, Alex spotted Liara in the station's central atrium. She stood before the massive viewport, her green profile silhouetted against the backdrop of swirling nebula gases that surrounded Outpost Omega. Something about her solitary figure stirred an unexpected feeling in him. A professional curiosity, he told himself. Quite a view, isn't it? He said, approaching but maintaining a respectful distance. Liara turned, her blue eyes widening slightly before her composure returned. Dr. Ryder, I did not expect to encounter you outside the medical facility. Please, call me Alex. He smiled, leaning against the railing beside her. Doctors do occasionally leave their examination rooms. Alec, she repeated as if testing the name. It is less formal than Xylosian naming conventions. And what should I call you? Analyst Liara Bakaran, third tier of the knowledge cast, seems a bit long for casual conversation. A hint of purple colored her cheeks. Liara would be acceptable. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the cosmic light show beyond the reinforced glass. I've been researching Xylosian culture, Alex finally said, trying to avoid future misunderstandings. Liara's posture stiffened slightly. I see. Not much information in our databases, though. Your people keep their customs pretty close to the chest. Knowledge is carefully guarded on Xylos, she replied, particularly regarding reproductive matters. Alex turned to face her directly. I'd like to learn more, not just as a doctor, but as someone who respects cultural differences. Would you be willing to teach me? Liara studied him, her analytical mind visibly processing his request. What would you wish to know? Everything you're comfortable sharing. In return, I could explain human customs. A cultural exchange of sorts. Her lips curved into the barest suggestion of a smile. An equitable arrangement, I accept. Great. How about dinner tomorrow? The station's mess hall attempts cuisine from across the galaxy. Some of it's even edible. I have noted that humans often combine nutritional intake with social interaction, Liara observed. An efficient practice. Alex laughed. That's one way to look at it. So, tomorrow at 1900 hours? I will be present, she confirmed with a formal nod that somehow managed to seem charming. As promised, they met the following evening. The mess hall was relatively quiet, with most of the station's personnel having already finished their meals. Alex had secured a corner table that offered both privacy and a spectacular view of the nebula. I took the liberty of researching Zalosian dietary requirements, Alex said as Liara approached. I hope you don't mind that I ordered for you. The chef prepared a traditional Zalosian protein dish. Liara's eyes widened in surprise. You researched our nutritional needs? Part of my job, Alex shrugged, though he didn't mention spending his entire lunch break combing through xenobiological databases. Please, sit. As they ate, their conversation flowed more naturally than either had it expected. Liara explained the basics of Zalosian caste structure, the knowledge caste to which she belonged, the warrior caste that protected their civilization, and the creation caste responsible for arts and reproduction. Wait, Alex interrupted, setting down his fork. Your society separates reproduction from the rest of the population? Liara nodded. The creation caste maintains genetic purity and ensures optimal offspring. When a mating cycle is approved, genetic material is exchanged in sacred ceremonies. So you've never... Alex trailed off, suddenly aware he might be crossing a line. Participated in a mating ritual? Liara finished for him. Number My caste focuses on intellectual pursuits. Our genetic material is only requested if specific analytical traits are desired in offspring. Alex struggled to hide his surprise. That's fascinating. Humans approach reproduction quite differently. Yes, I have observed that humans engage in a physical intimacy for purposes beyond reproduction. Liara's clinical tone contrasted sharply with the personal nature of her observation. This practice is perplexing to Zalosians. It's more than reproduction for us, Alex explained, feeling a flush creep up his neck. It's about connection, pleasure, expressing feelings. Feelings, Liara repeated as if the concept were novel. Zalosians are taught to subordinate emotional responses to logical analysis. But you do have emotions. Of course, we simply do not allow them to govern our actions. She paused, studying him with newfound interest. Your emotional expressiveness is intriguing. Humans seem to embrace what my people work to suppress. Alex leaned forward. Maybe there's value in both approaches. Logic has its place, but so do emotions. Perhaps. Liara's gaze dropped to his lips for a fleeting moment before returning to his eyes. I find myself curious about human ways. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with something neither had anticipated. Alex became acutely aware of how the station's lighting caught the iridescent quality of her green skin, how her white hair framed features that were alien yet undeniably beautiful. Curiosity is the foundation of all knowledge, he said softly. Liara's lips parted slightly, but before she could respond, Alex's communicator chirped loudly. Dr. Ryder to Medical Bay. Emergency situation. Dr. Ryder to Medical Bay immediately. Alex sighed, the moment broken. Duty calls, I'm sorry. No apology necessary, Liara replied, her professional demeanor reasserting itself. The exchange of information was valuable. As Alex hurried toward the medical bay, he found himself replaying their conversation in his mind. What had begun as professional curiosity was evolving into something more complex, a fascination not just with Zalosian culture, but with Liara herself. Behind him, Liara remained at the table, her analytical mind struggling to categorize the unfamiliar sensations their interaction had provoked. For the first time in her life, pure logic seemed insufficient to process her experience. Perhaps, she reasoned, further study of human customs was warranted, strictly for research purposes, of course. The medical bay was chaos when Alex arrived. 3 patients, 2 humans, and a centaurian lay on beds, their skin mottled with angry purple lesions. Medical staff rushed between them, administering treatments while wearing protective gear. "What's the situation?" Alex asked, quickly donning a protective suit. Chief Medical Officer Patel looked up from a scanner. "Unknown pathogen, started in Sector 7. These 3 were first responders to a ruptured coolant line. We've quarantined the area, but we need to identify this thing fast." Alex examined the nearest patient, a human engineer whose breathing had become labored. Symptoms? Begins with skin lesions, progresses to respiratory distress within hours. The centaurian's physiology is reacting differently, neurological symptoms instead. "Species-specific responses," Alex muttered. "We need a xenobiologist and an analyst." As if summoned by his thoughts, the medical bay doors slid open, and Liara entered, still wearing her dinner attire. "I monitored the emergency alert," she explained, approaching cautiously. "My analytical expertise may be of use." Alex couldn't suppress a smile despite the crisis. "Perfect timing. We need to identify a pathogen that's affecting multiple species differently." For the next several hours, they worked side by side. Liara's analytical abilities proved invaluable as she processed data faster than the station's computers, identifying patterns the medical team had missed. Alex found himself impressed not just by her intelligence, but by her calm efficiency under pressure. The pathogen appears to target different regulatory systems depending on species physiology, Liara announced, studying a molecular model. In humans, it affects respiratory regulation. In centaurians, neurological. That's why standard treatments aren't working, Alex realized. We need species-specific approaches. And by morning, they had developed targeted treatments for each affected species. As the last patient stabilized, Alex and Liara finally took a break, collapsing into chairs in his office. "Your analytical skills saved lives today," Alex said, passing her a cup of coffee. Liara examined the steaming liquid suspiciously before taking a cautious sip. Her eyes widened. "This is stimulating." "Human fuel," Alex laughed. "And speaking of human things, I never got to finish our cultural discussion last night." "Indeed," Liara set down the cup. "I have been conducting additional research on human social behaviors." Something in her tone made Alex curious. "What kind of research?" "Observational studies of human interactions on the station. I have noted several courtship rituals that appear common among your species." Alex nearly choked on his coffee. "Courtship rituals?" "Yes, for instance, I observed Lieutenant Chen repeatedly touching Commander Rodriguez's arm during conversation, a behavior you call flirting, and Ensign Park employed the technique of playing hard to get with Technician Okafor." Alex bit his lip, trying not to laugh. "And why are you researching human courtship behaviors?" Liara met his gaze directly. "For comprehensive cultural understanding." Before Alex could respond, his communicator chimed. "Dr. Ryder, incoming transmission from Xylosian diplomatic vessel. They're requesting docking clearance and medical protocols." Alex frowned. "Xylosian vessel? We weren't expecting—" "The High Counselor," Liara interrupted, her green complexion paling. "My progenitor. Your father is coming here?" "Now, the term father is imprecise. He contributed genetic material to my creation, but Xylosians do not form familial bonds as humans do." Liara stood abruptly. "I must prepare. High Counselor Vakaran will expect a formal reception." "Wait," Alex caught her arm gently. "Is this going to be a problem? Us working together?" Liara glanced down at his hand on her arm, then back to his face. "The knowledge caste does not typically associate with non-Xylosians." "I see." Alex released her arm. "Well, we wouldn't want to violate any cultural taboos." "No," Liara agreed, though something in her expression suggested conflict. "That would be, inappropriate." As she turned to leave, Alex called after her. "Liara?" Your research on human courtship, was it purely academic? She paused at the doorway. I find human emotional expressiveness fascinating. Your species embraces feelings that mine suppresses. It is educational. After she left, Alex sat back, running a hand through his hair. The arrival of a Xylosian diplomat, Liara's progenitor no less, complicated things. Whatever had been developing between them would now be under scrutiny. The following day, Outpost Omega's main docking bay was prepared for the Xylosian delegation. Station Commander Harris had ordered full diplomatic protocols, and a reception line of senior staff stood at attention as the airlock cycled. Alex, standing beside CMO Patel, spotted Liara across the bay. She had transformed overnight. Gone was the curious analyst he'd come to know. In her place stood a formal representative of the knowledge caste, wearing elaborate ceremonial attire with an even higher collar and her white hair arranged in a complex crown-like structure. She didn't acknowledge him. The airlock opened to reveal 3 tall Xylosian males. The center figure, clearly High Counselor Vakaran, had the same striking blue eyes as Liara, though his skin was a deeper emerald, and elaborate markings covered his face. He wore a high-collared robe that shimmered with embedded technology. "Welcome to Outpost Omega, High Counselor," Commander Harris greeted. Vakaran barely acknowledged the human. His gaze swept the reception line until it landed on Liara, who immediately stepped forward and performed a complex gesture with her hands. "Analyst Lishara," he intoned, his voice deep and resonant. "Your presence honors the knowledge caste." "The honor is mine, High Counselor," she replied formally. Vakaran's attention shifted to Alex, his eyes narrowing. "I understand there was a medical incident involving an unknown pathogen. Our delegation requires assurance of safety." Commander Harris gestured to Alex. "Dr. Ryder and analyst Liara successfully contained the situation. You collaborated with this human?" Vakaran's tone made the word sound like a disease. Liara's posture stiffened imperceptibly. "The knowledge caste seeks truth from all sources, High Counselor." Vakaran studied her for a long moment. "Indeed, we shall discuss your research methods privately." As the delegation moved toward their quarters, Liara caught Alex's eye briefly. In that fleeting glance, he saw something he hadn't expected. Not the analytical detachment of a Xylosian, but something far more human. Defiance. 3 days after the Xylosian delegation's arrival, Alex had seen nothing of Liara beyond glimpses across crowded corridors. Each time she was accompanied by stern-faced members of her father's entourage, her expression carefully neutral. The distance gnawed at him more than he cared to admit. Late that evening, as Alex reviewed patient files in his dimly lit office, his door slid open without a chime. Liara slipped inside, quickly securing the lock behind her. "Computer, privacy protocol," she commanded, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex stood, surprised but pleased. "Liara, I was beginning to think you'd been permanently reassigned to diplomatic escort duty." "I have limited time," she said, glancing nervously at the door. "What I am about to share violates multiple Xylosian protocols." The seriousness in her tone banished any thoughts of flirtation. "What's going on?" "The High Counselor's presence here is not diplomatic." Liara moved closer, lowering her voice further. "He seeks the pathogen you contained. The one from the coolant leak?" Why would a Xylosian diplomat care about a station maintenance accident? Liara's blue eyes held his with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Because it was not an accident. The pathogen was engineered, a prototype biological agent developed by the warrior caste. Alex sank back into his chair. "You're saying your people created that thing? It nearly killed 3 of our crew." "Not my people, a radical faction within the warrior caste. They seek to establish Xylosian dominance through biological warfare." Her voice trembled slightly. "The knowledge caste discovered their program, but could not shut it down without evidence. And your father, the High Counselor, is here to what? Cover it up?" Liara shook her head. "He leads those opposing the program. He needs proof the pathogen was deployed here to confront the warrior caste leadership." Alex ran a hand through his hair, processing this revelation. Why didn't he just ask for our help directly? Xylosian politics are complex. Open cooperation with humans would undermine his position. Liara hesitated. There is more. The pathogen samples you collected, they are incomplete. The full strain contains a component that targets reproductive systems across all humanoid species. A sterilization agent? Alex stood abruptly. That's genocide. Yes, the warrior caste believes non-Zelosian reproduction threatens our dominance. Liara's composure cracked, revealing genuine distress. I cannot allow this, Alex. It violates everything the knowledge caste stands for, the pursuit of truth and understanding. Alex moved around his desk, taking her hands in his. We'll stop them. We'll get the evidence your father needs. Liara looked down at their joined hands, then back to his face. There is significant risk. If the warrior caste discovers our interference, some things are worth the risk. Alex squeezed her hands gently. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before. We're still here because people stood up for what's right, even when it was dangerous. A look of wonder crossed Liara's face. This is what fascinates me about humans. Your emotional responses drive you to action where logical calculation might counsel restraint. Is that a compliment or a criticism? Alex asked with a half smile. An observation. Liara's gaze dropped to his lips. One of many I have made about your species. The air between them seemed to thicken. Alex became acutely aware of her proximity, the subtle floral scent that emanated from her green skin. The way her white hair caught the low light of his office. And what other observations have you made? He asked, his voice rougher than intended. Humans seek physical connection even in circumstances where reproduction is not the goal. Liara's analytical tone contrasted with the heat in her eyes. This behavior was incomprehensible to me until recently. And now, Alex stepped closer, their bodies nearly touching. Now I find myself curious. Her breath quickened. My research on human courtship behaviors has been enlightening. Alex raised an eyebrow. Research, huh? Any particular behaviors catch your interest? Liara released his hands only to place hers tentatively on his chest. This gesture appears common, the tactile assessment of physical fitness. Very scientific observation, Alex murmured, his hands finding her waist. And this, she continued, leaning closer until her lips were a breath away from his, appears to be a universal human greeting between potential mates. Their lips met in a kiss that began as hesitant exploration but quickly deepened into something more urgent. Liara's analytical reserve melted away as she pressed against him, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Alex rested his forehead against hers. Was that part of your research too? Practical application of theoretical knowledge, she replied, a smile playing at her lips. Humans place great importance on this activity. We do, Alex agreed, tracing the line of her jaw with his finger. Among other activities. Liara's eyes darkened with understanding. The activities for which your examination chair was designed? Alex couldn't help but laugh. Not exactly. Those are clinical. What I'm talking about is considerably more enjoyable. I would be interested in further research, Liara said, her formal phrasing at odds with the desire evident in her expression. Before Alex could respond, his communicator chimed with an urgent alert. Perimeter breach in Laboratory Section C, security protocols engaged. Liara stepped back, her expression shifting to alarm. The pathogen samples? They're stored in Section C. Someone's making a move, Alex said, already heading for the door. We need to secure those samples before the warrior caste obtains them, Liara finished. If they recover the pathogen, then we stop them, Alex said firmly. Together. Liara nodded, her analytical mind visibly shifting to tactical assessment. Together. As they hurried toward the laboratory section, Alex found himself struck by the irony. What had begun with a cultural misunderstanding about a gynecological examination had evolved into something neither of them could have predicted. A partnership that now stood between civilization and biological warfare. And somewhere along the way, that partnership had become something more. Something that defied Zelosian caste restrictions and human expectations alike. Alex and Liara raced through the station's corridors, emergency lights casting alternating shadows and red glows across their faces. The laboratory section's security doors had automatically sealed, but Liara quickly overrode the lockdown with her analyst credentials. "Stay behind me," Alex whispered as the final door slid open. The laboratory appeared undisturbed at first glance. Equipment humming quietly, screens displaying data streams, containment units securely sealed. Then Alex spotted a figure hunched over the primary research terminal. A High Counselor Vakaran, his elaborate robes unmistakable even from behind. "Father?" Liara called out, stepping forward. Vakaran turned sharply, his hand moving to a concealed weapon at his waist. When he recognized Liara, his posture relaxed marginally, though his eyes narrowed at the sight of Alex. "You should not be here, analyst," he said coldly, "and you certainly should not have brought a human." "We received an alert about a security breach," Alex explained, moving protectively closer to Liara. "Indeed." Vakaran's gaze shifted between them. "I triggered it deliberately. I needed to access these samples without alerting the warrior caste observers." Liara stepped forward. "I have informed Dr. Ryder about the biological weapon program. He can help us." Vakaran's face hardened. "You revealed classified information to an outsider? Have you forgotten your caste obligations?" "I have not forgotten my obligation to truth," Liara replied, her voice steady despite her father's disapproval. "Dr. Ryder helped contain the pathogen. His expertise could be crucial." Before Vakaran could respond, the laboratory's secondary entrance exploded inward. Through the smoke emerged three Xylosians in sleek combat armor, their skin darker green than Liara's and marked with jagged war patterns. Each carried a pulse weapon aimed directly at the High Counselor. "Traitor," the lead warrior spat. "Did you think we wouldn't monitor your communications, Vakhorn?" Alex instinctively pushed Liara behind a research station, shielding her with his body. Vakaran remained eerily calm, his aristocratic features betraying no fear. "Commander Tyrek," Vakaran acknowledged, "I suspected the warrior caste would send their most ruthless enforcer. The Council will be interested to learn how the esteemed High Counselor conspires with humans to undermine Xylosian supremacy." Tyrek gestured to the containment units. "Secure the samples." As the two subordinate warriors moved toward the pathogen storage, Alex caught Liara's eye. Without words, a plan formed between them, the kind of instantaneous understanding that typically took years to develop. Liara slipped from behind Alex and approached her father. "High Counselor, perhaps Commander Tyrek is correct. Xylosian interests must come first." Vakaran's eyes widened in surprise, while Tyrek smiled triumphantly. "At least one member of the Knowledge Caste remembers her place," the commander sneered. Liara bowed her head submissively, moving closer to the warriors. "The Knowledge Caste serves Xylos in all things." As she spoke, Alex edged toward the environmental controls, his movements slow and deliberate to avoid drawing attention. "The samples are secure," one warrior reported, holding up a containment case. "Excellent." Tyrek turned his weapon on Vakaran. "The warrior caste thanks you for your service, High Counselor. Your death will be recorded as a tragic accident during a human terrorist attack." In that moment, several things happened simultaneously. Alex slammed his fist into the emergency ventilation override, flooding the room with pressurized air. Liara, anticipating this, dropped to the floor while extracting a small device from her sleeve. Vakaran dove behind a console as Tyrek fired, the energy pulse searing the air where he had stood. Liara activated her device, a Xylosian neural disruptor that sent the two subordinate warriors crumpling to the floor, their nervous systems temporarily overloaded. Tyrek, partially shielded by his advanced armor, staggered but remained standing. "Treacherous bitch!" he snarled, swinging his weapon toward Liara. Alex didn't think, he reacted. Launching himself across the laboratory, he tackled the commander with a force that sent them both crashing into equipment. The pulse weapon discharged wildly, scorching the ceiling. They grappled on the floor, Tyrek's enhanced strength nearly overwhelming Alex, until Liara delivered a precise strike to a nerve cluster at the base of the warrior's neck. Tyrek went limp. "Are you hurt?" Liara asked, helping Alex to his feet. "Just my pride," he winced, touching a cut on his forehead. "Your father?" Vakaran emerged from behind the console, his regal composure somewhat diminished. "I am unharmed thanks to your an unexpected intervention." "The pathogen samples?" Liara asked urgently. Vacheron held up the containment case he had retrieved during the chaos. Secure. With these, I can prove the warrior cast's treachery to the council. Alex moved to the fallen warriors, checking their vital signs. They'll be unconscious for hours, but we should secure them before they wake up. As they bound the warriors with laboratory restraints, Vacheron studied Alex with newfound curiosity. You risked your life for me, human. Why? Because it was the right thing to do, Alex replied simply. And because Liara believes in you. Vacheron's gaze shifted to his daughter. Oh, you chose well in your alliance. Liara's cheeks flushed purple. Father, it's not... I may be old, but I am not blind, Vacheron interrupted, his tone softening. I have observed how you look at this human. It is not merely analytical interest. Alex cleared his throat awkwardly. Sir, I assure you... Spare me your assurances, Doctor. Ryder. Vacheron raised a hand. Our species may have different approaches to personal relationships, but I recognize courage and honor when I see it, qualities valued in all castes of Xylos. Station security arrived, led by Commander Harris, who surveyed the scene with wide eyes. Someone want to explain what the hell happened here? After the warriors were taken into custody and the pathogen samples secured in the station's most protected vault, Alex found himself alone with Liara in a quiet observation lounge. The nebula outside cast shifting colors across her green features as she stood at the viewport. Your father surprised me, Alex said, joining her. I expected more resistance to us. The knowledge cast values adaptation more than the others, Liara explained, though I doubt he fully understands what exists between us. And what does exist between us? Alex asked softly, turning her to face him. Liara's analytical reserve faltered. I find myself experiencing emotions that have no place in Xylosian society. Desires that contradict my caste training. Tell me, Alex urged, his hands finding her waist. I want to know you, Alex, not just intellectually, but in the way humans know each other. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I want to understand why your people value physical connection so deeply that you build your societies around it. Alex brushed a strand of white hair from her face. Some things can't be understood analytically. They have to be experienced. Then teach me, Liara said, her blue eyes meeting his with determination. Show me what I've been missing. Their lips met in a kiss that contained none of the hesitation of their first. As the nebula's light played across their entwined figures, the cultural gulf between them seemed to narrow, bridged by something more powerful than either had anticipated. The week following the laboratory confrontation passed in a blur of diplomatic meetings, security debriefings, and stolen moments between Alex and Liara. With Commander Tyrek and his warriors in custody and the pathogen samples secured as evidence, High Counselor Vacheron prepared to return to Xylos to present his case against the radical faction of the warrior caste. On their final night together before duty would separate them again, Alex led Liara to his quarters. The room was simple but comfortable, with personal touches that reflected his human sensibilities. Physical books on shelves, photographs of Earth landscapes, and a small potted plant from his homeworld. Your dwelling contains many tactile objects, Liara observed, running her fingers along the spine of a medical text. Xylosian living spaces prioritize efficiency over sentiment. Humans need physical reminders of our connections, Alex explained, dimming the lights to a warm glow. It grounds us. Liara turned to face him, her analytical expression softening. I have been contemplating our previous encounters. The physical sensations were unlike anything in my experience. Alex smiled, stepping closer. That was just the beginning. I have studied human mating behaviors extensively since then, she continued, a hint of purple coloring her cheeks, though I find the educational materials in your databases somewhat imprecise. Some things can't be learned from databases, Alex murmured, gently taking her hands in his. How are you feeling about tonight? Liara's blue eyes met his with characteristic directness. Curious, apprehensive, eager. She paused. On Xylos, reproductive activities are clinical, purposeful. The creation caste manages all aspects with scientific precision. And how do you feel about trying the human way instead? I find myself drawn to your approach, despite its inefficiency. Her lips curved in a small smile. "Perhaps because of it," Alex laughed softly, leading her toward his bed. Inefficiency has its charms. What followed was a journey of discovery for both of them. Liara approached their intimacy with the same analytical thoroughness she applied to everything, cataloging sensations and responses with wonder. Alex found himself equally fascinated by the differences in Xylotian physiology, the way her green skin flushed purple with arousal, how her body temperature fluctuated with her emotions, the unexpected sensitivity of areas that would be unremarkable on a human. "Your heart rate has increased by approximately 43%, Liara whispered against his neck at one point. "Are you analyzing me during sex?" Alex asked, amused rather than offended. "I cannot help it," she admitted, "but I find my own analytical functions are becoming compromised." As they moved together, the boundaries between their species seemed to dissolve. Cultural differences gave way to a more fundamental connection, a shared experience of pleasure and discovery that transcended their different origins. Afterward, they lay tangled in his sheets, Liara's head resting on his chest as he traced patterns on her shoulder. "Your reproductive practices are remarkably inefficient for propagating the species," she observed, though her tone held no criticism. "Yet I begin to understand their purpose beyond reproduction." "And what purpose is that?" Alex asked, kissing the top of her head. "Connection, the sharing of vulnerability, the temporary suspension of individual identity." She propped herself up to look at him. "These are concepts the knowledge caste studies but rarely experiences." Alex brushed a strand of white hair from her face. "And how was your first experience?" "Illuminating." Her expression grew serious. "Alex, there is something I must tell you. Something I discovered during our coupling." Alex sat up, concerned by her tone. "What is it?" "My body's biochemical responses to yours were unexpected." Liara reached for her datapad on the nightstand and activated a holographic display showing complex molecular structures. "My analytical implants automatically recorded the changes." Alex studied the display, his medical training allowing him to recognize certain patterns. "These are hormonal signatures, but I don't recognize the compounds." "They are unique to Xylotian physiology, specifically compounds produced during our reproductive cycle." Liara manipulated the display to show a comparison. "According to our medical database, these compounds should only appear during the formal mating process with genetically selected partners." "But you produce them with me?" Alex was trying to follow the implications. "Yes, which should be biologically impossible with a non-Xylotian." Liara's eyes shone with excitement. "Do you understand what this means?" Alex shook his head. "Not entirely." The warrior caste's justification for biological warfare is based on the belief that Xylotians cannot successfully reproduce with other species, making us genetically superior and isolated. She took his hands. "But my body's response to you suggests otherwise. Our species may be more compatible than anyone realized." "That would undermine their entire supremacist ideology," Alex realized. "Precisely. And it explains why the creation caste maintains such strict control over reproduction, that they may have discovered this compatibility generations ago and concealed it to maintain the caste system." Liara's voice trembled with the magnitude of her discovery. "Alex, this could transform Xylotian society." Alex pulled her close, overwhelmed by the implications. What had begun as cultural curiosity and physical attraction had led to a discovery that could reshape relations between their species. "Your father needs to know," he said finally. "This evidence, combined with the pathogen samples, could completely discredit the warrior caste's agenda." Liara nodded against his chest. "I will present my findings to him before his departure tomorrow." "What does this mean for us?" Alex asked, voicing the question that hung between them. Liara pulled back to meet his gaze. "I do not know. This discovery will have far-reaching consequences that even my analytical capabilities cannot fully predict." "Whatever happens," Alex said, cupping her face gently, "I'm glad it was you who walked into my examination room that day." Liara's lips curved into a smile. "Even though I refused to open my legs for you, human male?" Alex laughed, delighted by her rare display of humor. "Especially because of that. Some things are worth waiting for." As they drifted to sleep in each other's arms, Neither could have predicted how their personal discovery would ripple through both their worlds, challenging centuries of assumptions and opening possibilities that neither humans nor Zalosians had dared to imagine. 1 year later, the newly established Interspecies Medical Research Center on Outpost Omega buzzed with activity. In the central laboratory, a holographic display showed the molecular structure of a compound that had revolutionized relations between humans and Zalosians. The compatibility enzyme, Liara explained to a mixed group of human and Zalosian medical students, first discovered during an unconventional cultural exchange. From the back of the room, Alex suppressed a smile. Liara had become remarkably adept at understating the personal nature of their discovery while emphasizing its scientific significance. This enzyme allows for biochemical communication between human and Zalosian cellular structures. She continued, manipulating the display to show the compound in action. Prior to its discovery, the creation cast maintained that such compatibility was biologically impossible. A young Zalosian from the knowledge cast raised his hand. Analyst Vakaran, how did you first hypothesize the existence of this enzyme? Liara's green cheeks flushed slightly purple. Through direct observation of physiological responses during cross-species interaction, Alex decided to rescue her. What analyst Vakaran means is that sometimes the most important discoveries happen by accident, he said, stepping forward. When different cultures come together with open minds, we find connections we never imagined possible. The students nodded, though the humans exchanged knowing glances. The story of how the stern Zalosian analyst and the human doctor had discovered interspecies compatibility had become something of a legend on the station, growing more romantic with each retelling. After dismissing the class, Liara joined Alex by the viewport that overlooked the nebula, the same spot where they had first begun their cultural exchange. You enjoyed my discomfort, she accused, though her eyes sparkled. Just a little, Alex admitted, slipping an arm around her waist. You've come a long way from the woman who was horrified at the thought of opening her legs for a human male. Liara laughed, a sound that had once been rare but now came naturally. And you've come a long way from the doctor who thought a gynecological exam was a reasonable first date. Their banter was interrupted by the arrival of High Counselor Vakaran, now flanked by representatives from both the knowledge and creation castes rather than warriors. The past year had seen dramatic changes in Zalosian society, with the warrior caste's influence diminished after the biological weapon plot was exposed. Daughter, Vakaran greeted Liara with a formal gesture that had softened over time. Dr. Ryder, High Counselor, Alex nodded respectfully. How was the council session? Productive. The integration proposal passed its final review. Vakaran's expression remained dignified, but satisfaction gleamed in his eyes. The caste system will remain, but the barriers between them will be permeable. Knowledge, creation, and even warrior castes will now be encouraged to share expertise. And the interspecies provisions? Liara asked, her hand finding Alex's. Approved as well. The council acknowledges that isolation has hindered rather than protected Zalosian advancement. Vakaran studied their joined hands. Your research was instrumental in shifting centuries of thinking. Alex squeezed Liara's hand. Their discovery that humans and Zalosians could produce compatible biochemical responses had expanded into a broader research initiative. They had identified similar compatibility patterns with other species, suggesting that the universe favored connection rather than isolation. The creation caste representatives wish to speak with you both, Vakaran continued. They are particularly interested in your proposal for a new approach to reproductive health that incorporates both Zalosian precision and human emotional considerations. Liara raised an eyebrow. That is unexpected. The creation caste has been the most resistant to change. They have had the most to lose, her father acknowledged. Their control over reproduction gave them significant power, but your research offers them a new purpose. Pioneers of interspecies medical understanding, rather than guardians of genetic purity. After Vakaran departed to prepare for the diplomatic reception that evening, Alex led Liara to a quiet corner of the research center. His old examination room, now preserved as a historical marker of where their journey began. Feeling nostalgic? Liara asked as the door slid shut behind them. A little. Alex leaned against the examination chair that had once been the source of such cultural misunderstanding. I was thinking about how differently things might have gone if you just followed my instructions that first day. If I had simply opened my legs for you, Liara teased, moving to stand between his knees, we might never have discovered the compatibility enzyme. Sometimes resistance leads to greater understanding. Alex wrapped his arms around her waist, marveling at how naturally they fit together despite their different origins. I have something for you. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object. A ring crafted from an alloy of earth silver and xylosian luminescent metal that glowed faintly blue against her green skin. This is a human tradition, he explained, a symbol of commitment. Liara examined the ring with characteristic thoroughness. The knowledge cast would call this inefficient, a physical object to represent an emotional state. And what would you call it? Alex asked, holding his breath. Liara slipped the ring onto her finger, where it pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. I would call it perfect, a tangible reminder of an intangible connection, much like your books and photographs. She leaned down to kiss him, and Alex was struck once again by how far they had come. What had begun as a clinical examination had evolved into something neither of their cultures had words to fully describe, a partnership that bridged worlds. That evening, at the diplomatic reception celebrating the new era of cooperation between humans and Solosians, Commander Harris raised a toast. To Dr. Ryder and Analyst Vukaran, he announced to the gathered dignitaries, whose cultural misunderstanding led to the greatest breakthrough in interspecies relations in a generation. As glasses clinked around them, Alex whispered in Liara's ear, should we tell them it all started because you didn't know what a gynecologist was? Liara's eyes danced with mischief. Perhaps in another year. Some cultural revelations require proper timing. Later that night, as they stood on the observation deck, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy, including the first Xylosian vessel with mixed-caste crews, Liara rested her head on Alex's shoulder. I have been analyzing our journey, she said softly, from that first examination to now. And what has your analysis concluded? Alex asked, kissing the top of her head. That the most valuable discoveries often begin with the most awkward questions? She looked up at him, her blue eyes reflecting the stars. And that sometimes opening oneself to new experiences, even frightening ones, leads to the greatest rewards. Alex smiled, remembering her horrified expression when he'd first asked her to assume the examination position. So does this mean you'll finally let me give you a proper gynecological exam? Liara's laughter echoed across the observation deck. Perhaps human male, but only because I now understand why you ask. As they sealed their agreement with a kiss, the stars of two distant systems, Earth, Sun, and Xylos' binary stars, became visible through the nebula's swirling gases, shining together in the vast expanse of space that had once seemed too wide to bridge.